Hello and welcome back to the TFL 3. Now, this video is going to be a bit different than usual. You're probably used to the more factual, more voiceover style, which my colleague Hugh does so well, but today it's me, Daniel. So let me know how I did, if you'd like to see more of this style from me. Also, whatever you do, don't try playing a drinking game every time I say the word Parkway, because that won't end well. Right, let's get on with the topic. Have you noticed anything unusual about many of the stations which have been opening across the UK recently? You know, Thanet Parkway, Worcestershire Parkway, Portway Park and Ride, etc. Well, I did. They almost don't feel like train stations, what with all the emphasis on parking. Parkway this, park and ride that. Even a lot of the ones that don't tell you are parkways are still built with massive car parks in mind. Now, what even is a parkway anyway? It's a fairly weird name when you think about it. The broad premise is that it's a train station designed first and foremost for cars to come up, park in the station car park, and get the train wherever it is you want to go. However, it's hard to find a consistent definition, and that's certainly not always how it's applied in reality. Now, I've compiled a list of parkway stations, that being all 23 stations ending in parkway, plus Portway Park and Ride, which is close enough I guess, and a few other stations which are also clearly primarily designed to meet the needs of motorists. Besides the focus on cars, I can't find much that unites all of them, but there are certain themes which many of them share, which can make for an interesting Venn diagram. 1. Outside a city centre. Now, when I first started researching this idea, I thought, oh, come on, they're all outside a city centre, but that's not always the case. For instance, consider Worcestershire Parkway, a station which is pretty much in the middle of nowhere and would have no justification to exist at all if it didn't just happen to be where two railway lines meet. Now, compare that with Didcot Parkway, a station which has been in the middle of Didcot since 1844, and plenty of people would visit without needing to drive at all. Most parkways do broadly fit this description though, although the distance from their respective settlements does vary considerably. 2. Serves an airport, or some development outside a city. Pretty self-explanatory, I think. I identified 5 airport stations in our list, and these tend to also be the parkway stations with the most passengers, with 4 out of 5 having more than 1 million passengers as of 2023-24 statistics. I'll get to the odd one out later, but one thing I want to touch on is why some airport stations are parkways and others aren't. Southampton Airport Parkway and, say, Gatwick Airport differ because while both have parking, Gatwick station exit will take you directly into the terminal building, whereas Southampton's does not, and the car park affixed to the station is intended for commuters rather than air passengers. In addition, other airport stations such as Luton Airport Parkway and Liverpool South Parkway are called such because additional transport is required to reach your final destination. Alternatively, some parkways do well by serving an out-of-town development, such as Cambridge North, which serves Cambridge Science Park. Or you can be Birmingham International, which serves both an airport, a stadium, and an exhibition centre, and will have interchange with HS2 when that eventually, maybe, possibly, hopefully doesn't get cancelled halfway through construction. Speaking of interchange... 3. Interchange. A lot of the most useful parkway stations are those which are designed with changing trains in mind. I've already mentioned Worcestershire Parkway, which allows people in Worcester to connect with cross-country services which would otherwise go through the county non-stop. I've also mentioned Liverpool South Parkway, where Main Line meets Merseyrail, which we did a race about. There are also 5 other parkway stations with over 100,000 interchanges as of 2023-24. St Earth deserves a mention here, a station which was an exception to almost every other metric I use to define parkways, and basically only exists to allow for interchange with the St Ives line. So, what have we learned about parkways? Not a lot really, I'll be honest, but these are some tips we can use to categorise most of them. Alright, next question. Why are we building so many? Of the stations built as parkways upon opening, Bristol Parkway was the first, in 1972. It is located on the Great Western Main Line branch from Swindon to Swansea, and just north of Bristol. It is actually located in the county of Gloucestershire, and is the most used station in that county, with the highest amount of interchanges in our parkway list. Sorry Gloucester, bronze medal for you. Hey, could be worse, could be Buckingham, they don't even get a station at all. Sorry, got distracted. Where was I? Oh yes, Bristol Parkway was clearly a massive success, so more parkways began to open left, right and centre. The 1980s began a boom in parkway openings, with other stations being renamed in this time. Now, more than half of all parkway named stations opened after the year 2000. Interestingly, only one station has lost the status of parkway, that being Ebbsfleet, opened just 1 year after Bristol Parkway, as Ebbsfleet and Mansfield Parkway. However, in 1995, Mansfield got its train services back, so the station became just Ebbsfleet. The business case for these stations is that car users from areas not served by trains will, instead of driving to a city centre and causing congestion and taking up parking spaces, will instead drive to the parkway, park up, and get the train from there to the city. But is this really the case? Well, the parkway stations have had mixed success. the pioneer Bristol Parkway has undoubtedly been a success. It has over 2 million entries and exits as of 2023-24, and is an important place for many interchanges. Similarly, most of the parkways which serve airports or other developments have found success from travellers. But did the station's success come from its status as a parkway? 900,000 people, almost a third of all visits to Bristol Parkway, were from people changing trains, not from car users. Nearby Filton Abbey Wood has over 600,000 users, almost a third of the users Bristol Parkway gets, and the latter gets more services than the former. That is not to say that Bristol Parkway was not a success, but whether it is the fact that it's a parkway that made it successful is potentially up for debate. Also, some of the parkway stations that I have looked at have not met expectations. The UK had passenger growth of 16% from 2022-23 to 2023-24 statistics, but only 7 of the stations I considered as parkways were able to equalise or surpass that figure, not counting stations opened in 2023. 8 stations had a growth rate below half of that figure. One station, Ebbsfleet Parkway, even saw a decline of 6% between those 2 years, although this is likely due to the opening of Ebbsfleet Town one stop further down the line in 2015, which serves the town centre. To me, one station stands out as an example of what not to do. Remember that one airport parkway station I mentioned exactly 4 minutes ago, which had not met 1 million passengers? Yeah, that was East Midlands Parkway, with only 300,000 users as of 2023-24, falling short of passenger targets. For more information about this station in particular, check out Someone Explores' very good video on the topic, but I'll give a quick summary. The station was intended to serve East Midlands Airport, located between Nottingham, Leicester and Derby. However, there are no regularly scheduled buses between East Midlands Parkway and the airport, so almost all travellers will either drive directly to the airport or get the bus from any of those 3 cities, so there's just no reason to use the station at all. This isn't the only station that hasn't met expectations. I went to Ebbsfleet International to see what went wrong there.
So you join me at Ebbsfleet International, a station which brands itself as a gateway to London. However, I believe is more accurately called London Parkway, because just look at all of these spaces. And this isn't even half of it. There's 6,000 here, and they could have built more, up to 9,000. However, you can probably see the problem here. They're all empty, or most of them at least. You'd have thought that drivers might want to park up here to avoid the ULEZ or the congestion charge. You know, park up here, go into London and come back and get your car. Saves you money and keeps London streets free of congestion. However, clearly that's not the case. So why? I think there's a few problems. Firstly, the interchange here is not very good. The Gravesend bound platforms have a different gate line to the High Speed 1 platforms onto Ashford and other parts of Kent. So it's not the most intuitive to change trains here. However, that alone isn't a death knell. What I believe is a much more serious problem is the fact that Northfleet Station is just 300 metres somewhere that way. However, the walk is so difficult. It took me 11 minutes. I had to go through the car park gates here, at some points had no footpath at all, and the signposts aren't very good, and Google will send you a completely different way that takes 10 minutes longer. It's not easy, but no one's doing anything about it because this is in Dartford Council and Northfleet Station is in Gravesham Council. So basically they keep passing the political buck, no one wants to spend the money, and the problem continues. However, of course, the elephant in the room is the Eurostar. After all, that's why this is Ebbsfleet International rather than just something else, I don't know, like Gravesham Parkway, I don't know. However, it continues to be international for some reason, even though Ebbsfleet International is no longer a stop for the Eurostar. So that is because Eurostar cited low passenger demand, but at the same time, I know people who drive in from parts of Kent that don't have train stations or not very good links and park up here and get the train into Europe. However, they now can't do that. They've got to go into London if they wanna. So what happens is people don't use the station. People just go into London or drive, might get the Euro shuttle with the cars if they want to do that. So there's not much reason to use this station. And what's more, the roads around here are reportedly not very good, at least according to my friends. You've got to get on the M25 and that's notorious. So again, people might choose to just drive somewhere else or just not bother coming at all. So therefore, I think that's some of the reasons that Ebbsfleet International hasn't met its potential, and what designers of other parkway stations should consider before they build. Okay, maybe not the Eurostar one, but things like interchange are very important. Making sure your road links are actually good. Making sure there's actually a reason to use your parkway. These are important things that need to be considered before you build. You can literally see Ebbsfleet from Northfleet Station, and yet it takes this long to get there. What a joke. All of these massive ticket halls, nearly almost entirely empty. Oh yeah, another quick thing I forgot to mention about interchange, buses. The buses are not very good. They basically just go to Dartford and that's about it. Someone even asked me where the bus stop was while I was trying to film. It's not intuitive. This doesn't feel like a hub. This feels like something that's trying really, really hard to be a hub, but just isn't, because to be a hub, people need to actually want to change it. You don't have to say, please change here, but like, because it's like, you've got to have something to change to. It's got to be easy for people to change, and it's just not. It's not easy to be able to change to other modes. Of course, that's not the biggest deal with a parkway, but it does still matter. After all, someone's clearly looking for the buses, so it does matter. Also, I don't drive, so I don't know what regular car parking prices are, but this plus the high-speed one surcharge does seem a bit steep. So, has the Parkway experiment been a success or a failure? Well, really it depends. There have been some true winners like Bristol and Worcestershire which have exceeded all passenger estimates, some with room to improve like Ebbsfleet which has unfulfilled potential, and some which have serious structural flaws such as East Midlands. It's too early to say whether stations such as Thanet Parkway, which we visited back on opening day in 2023, will prove themselves or not. But of the stations which have proven a success, most of them serve other purposes besides just being a place to park your car, whether that be providing interchange or serving an airport or new development. Many more parkway stations are either actively being built or are being discussed by stakeholders, so it's important that we look back and learn from those which succeeded and those which didn't. As ever, I hope you enjoyed the video. Do leave a comment if you enjoyed this voiceover style from me.
Hey, stop stealing my voiceover style!
Yeah, maybe we should let Hugh know that. Anyway, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Thank you to all of our supporters and all of our friends who gave footage for this video, and we'll see you in the next one.